So today's session will be taking a look at Google Calendar, new information, and reviewing Google Forms. I'm recording my laptop or my screen so because Joanne's got another meeting, and I'm recording this so that she can then view it. You guys can too, actually. So it'll make me a little. I'll probably put it up on YouTube. What's that? I've got a thing called Camtasia, which is a screen recorder editor, and it lets you make videos and that kind of thing too. So, yeah. So when I was teaching and doing tutoring, that came in super handy to make little. Here's a 5 minute on how to do this rather than how do you here's a video.
Disney gonna sue 'em?
As long as I don't use their
Sounds
stuff.
a lot like Fantasia.
Camtasia, right. Yeah, I don't know. They've weathered that one, but so we're going to be taking a look at Google Calendar as our new thing. I've got a couple screens set up, so I'm going to bounce back and forth between this screen and this screen over here. I've got the agenda on both of them, but this is the Google Calendar I use for the pickleball group. So this is the one I've actually. What's that? Hey, look at that. So this is the one I've got actually populated, and then when people access the pickleball group site that I've made, this is the calendar they see there as well. And then that way, that also cuts down because up until then it was kind of word of mouth, or we'd try to keep a text group going, and then somebody wouldn't see it, and then they'd show up the wrong day. So this is the actual calendar we'll use as the example, and then over here I've just got kind of a
Last briefing, everybody showed up.
and that was completely on me. Yeah, because
That was on me too. I should have reminded you. I saw you the 2 days prior. I should have said something and it just slipped my mind.
Well, and then when you said it, I was like, I didn't see it on the calendar. And then I looked back,
know,
and it was on the calendar. I'm like,
Dropped the ball.
yeah. Anyway, so I threw you under the bus. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, so this is kind of a standard calendar. I'll use this just as a, it looks like a calendar, and sure enough, it's got all the details over here. We can also hide this view. So if I didn't want to see all these details, I can. I think it's this one that makes it so I can now just see the calendar itself. And then it's really easy. I mean, to add a new date, you just click and start putting in your details. So it's really straightforward. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But that's kind of how the basic setup is. So we'll go through how to change the settings, how to then be able to share a calendar with other people. And one nice thing about this too is because not everybody who comes to pickleball is a Gmail user, once you make a calendar, you can share it with anybody. So as long as they have the link, and I build it right into the Google site, so as long as they can get there, the calendar is kind of built into that then. It's really easy to add single events. You can also very nicely, I think this is a newer feature because I swear I never saw it until like a month ago. And then I was like, what's that do? So I clicked on like, oh, that saves so much time because like for the calendar stuff, if you're putting in like an address of where something is, like for pickleball, it takes time to put in Jefferson Barnes. And I was like, oh my gosh, boom, like all that stuff is there. I didn't have to redo it again. What's that?
It repeats it.
Yeah, and then you can change the date and time if you need to, but it basically like a copy paste, and then it lets you fine tune the details if you need to make any changes. And there's even a super slick way that I've been using for a few months now where you can, and I think we've talked about the CSV files before. I think, Mark, had you heard of those guys? Comma separated values. It's often an Excel or a spreadsheet where if you have stuff, you can save it so behind the scenes then it's no longer in actual boxes, it just has commas between the things, but it's a very common data file type. So you can use both Excel and Google Sheets to make a CSV file, and then you can import that into the calendar. So I'll show you that too, and that makes things really slick.
No, we didn't talk about that because I would remember.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, well, bonus. Well, that's another bonus extra thing that we'll see later on. Okay, and so just kind of recap-wise, and do you guys feel like you want me to go through light, medium, or heavy details on the form setup from last time as a recap? You want it to be, what's your choice?
Been so long, I don't remember what it was. I know the first one was folders. I don't know what we covered last time.
Okay, the previous one was the survey, and then how we could look at the details from when, like you guys actually took the survey, and then it let us see a graph, and it let us
Okay,
like
yeah.
look at the thing inside of a spreadsheet. So, and this is the document you now have access to. So I'll just kind of scroll down, and then if you're like, oh, how does that work again? I've got it open, ready for us to look at. So this was the survey we looked at that I made, and then you guys took, and then this was like how we saw it in the data form. Oops, oh, that just made both of those go big. Okay, well, we'll keep that one smaller then. But just kind of a how do we get there kind of thing. If you're making a brand new form, here's the step-by-step. So follow ABC. It'll let you make one. Make that a little bit bigger for now. Oops, maybe. And then this is again kind of like if you did the previous thing where you just started a brand new blank form, you can then start filling in the details. So down in the ABC here, I've kind of explained what each of those different parts, each part is down here. So there's a survey name, which is up here, title. This is what people who got the survey would see. And then the description, that's where you can add in some details. So people who are taking the survey would actually get some kind of directions if you wanted to be like, hey, please fill this out and include, such and such details. There were several settings that we could adjust, hitting that little settings thing here. And from there, we can either make it a quiz. So if we said, hey, there are correct answers, so we want someone to be able to know, like, hey, if you're saying, like, what are the proper steps to submit this form to Jefferson Barnes, you could actually have it be a thing that would give them feedback afterwards if they got it wrong. Like, oh, nope, it's really this. Or you could just gather data and then have it pipes it right into a spreadsheet when they're done. After every single response, it automatically puts the data into the spreadsheet for you. So, yeah.
I know that this probably doesn't apply to UKC, but
No, I think that's nice to make a connection because, the more examples people come up with, I think the better, you can start to say, oh, I can see how I can actually use this. Okay, so there were some additional details that we could go through as far as like defaults for a question. And you guys might remember that it was smart enough as we started typing in a new question, if it seemed like if it was which of the following, it made it a multiple choice question. If I said, fill in the da-da-da, it made a fill in the blank. And I was like, that was also a newer thing since I was teaching. I'm like, well, aren't you just spiffy? Like it's paying attention. It's like, okay, I think this is what you want. So they got a little more smarts behind the scenes going on. And then these are just to show you the options you have over here. So again, my thinking in making this was in case you wanted to dive into it more on your own, you'd have a little bit of a helper, a little guide as far as how to do it. We made a question or a couple of questions, I think, live while we were doing it, and it has different kinds of questions available. And even the one I had you guys do, we used a couple different things. So I think it had a multiple choice grid. So it was like, how do you rate yourself on these topics? And then it was, like, hey, I'm doing really well, or, oh, I'm not doing so hot. And then you can also have some validation. So for instance, let's say you were asking for an email, you could have in the checking for the little @ symbol. So if you've ever been on a site where it says that's not an email, they might have some validation going on behind the scenes to go, hey, we're looking for a .com, a .net, a something, and if it's not there, we're not taking it as an email. Because sometimes people go in, they'll just be like to try to get past something. Well, if you have validation going on, you could be like, hey, it needs to at least meet some basic parameters. So they could probably still spoof it, but that's why more and more sites were getting that secondary thing where they're like, enter your email and then we'll send you the link.
Exactly.
So they kind of make sure that you're not just making up crap. Yeah.
two-part verification.
Yep. Two-factor authentication. Yep. Okay, so again, the idea was just to kind of make this so if you did want to go into using a survey or form from Google on your own, you'd have a little bit of helper to do it. This was looking at how we could look at the results. And I don't think we actually did one of these together, but I as I was looking at this, because this was, I don't know, a month and a half ago, or maybe even 2 months ago, I was like, oh shoot, I really like this way, and I forgot to show you guys. So it actually lets you see per question a one question summary, and then you can kind of see how people answered. So not covered, covered a bit, or covered thoroughly. So it's kind of nice where it makes an automatic graph for you. So I didn't have to do that. It did it for us. And then another we're looking at it is like, oh, I can just look at, for instance, the first name, and then it gave me all the data that was back there. And because you can see the little blue guys down here, this is a screenshot here, but if this were on your screen, you'd be able to click on it and then go into that person's response. So if you, what's that?
And see all the responses.
Exactly, see all the details, yep. And then it also has another way of kind of going through them. So if I was on, say, Joanne's, I could use this little, it's almost like the play and the fast forward where I could go through one by one and see the details there. So it has a lot of different ways you can look at the data, which is nice. And then if you're just like, give me the spreadsheety version, and I'll do with it what I want to, you can also look at it that way. So it has lots of different ways to organize the data and then let you see it. Cool. Any questions on that kind of stuff? Awesome. All right. So you guys have access to this document that's in the session 2 notes. And I, just because I'm a little, I don't know if it's OCD or what, but it's color coded. So the blue is last time's, and then the red is today's. So I'm following that as a pattern. A little obsessive about things. So all right. So yeah, right. Keeps me honest then, because then I visually can go, oh right, that was last time. So all right, cool. So that was kind of a quick recap of the survey stuff. So some things that we want to know about the calendar, I think we already showed, like it kind of defaults. So if you were trying to navigate around quickly, like you're used to on your phones or computers, you can use the little back or forward buttons. And then if you're say, hey, I don't need this anymore, you can just click on the 3 lines and it goes away. This is, however, where we do come along if we want to share a calendar. So this is kind of unique compared to almost everything else in Google Docs. Usually there's like a share button over in the upper right-hand corner for almost every other piece of Google Docs. But for calendars, you actually have to come down within the My Calendar section, find the little dots here, and then go to settings and sharing. So it's different than all the other places. And I was like, why? Maybe that'll change over time, because usually they try to make things consistent so people won't have to relearn and go, well, how do I share a calendar? But that's a little different. You also can color code. So let's say you're in charge of 3 different calendars and you're keeping track of like my side business here. I put it in blue. This calendar then actually shows up on my personal calendar too, but it has its own color scheme. So like quickly again, I can see like, oh, that's a tech thing I've got coming up versus a pickleball thing, which shows up in a different color. But you get to choose which color you want for different things, and then it'll show up in that color over here. So if I just do a green, it's hard to tell. That little circle just switched colors. Let's make it red. So if it's a whole day event, then because this one isn't a whole day event, but the whole day events show up a little differently. Actually, I think we can see one over here.
Why didn't the circle around the day change?
Because that's I think the current day. So I think it's just showing.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, that just happened to be.
Okay. So that's just telling you have something planned there that day. You just happen to have blue, which was also blue.
Right.
Okay.
Well, because it is the second, so like the second is highlighted, but that's nothing to do with my color scheme. It's showing us that's today.
That's today.
Yep. So yeah, if I notice even though I click over here, today is still, because that way we know like, oh, what day are we on right now? There, that one. Tax day, you can see it shows up as one of a holiday or a thing that is a calendar that might be interesting for other things. I'll go ahead and put that back to the blue. Let's see what we've covered so far. Oh, there's a help. So I found I just found a little Google Calendar support document that had its own stuff. So I gave you guys a link in the notes for that if you wanted to go through and look at it. But again, what do we want to do, or what do we usually do if we want to know something? We Google it ourselves, right? So, but this one I happened to find. I thought maybe that's useful. Over here on the calendar, and you may have seen that I just used this a minute ago. If you double click on a day, it'll open up that day so you can see, kind of like the old-fashioned like Franklin Planner or a day calendar kind of setup. And you have a lot of control over how you see things, depending on how big your screen is. So if you're working on a phone, you might not be able to see all the details. So like for this calendar, when I've got the pickleball group, if somebody's looking at it on their phone, they might be able to see that there's a little dot, but they can't see any details about the time or what the thing is. But if they rotate their phone, then it switches and they can see the details. So that's something I've been showing people as I share the calendar with them, is like, hey, if you're on your phone, which a lot of people, that's how they're looking at stuff now, is right on the phone. You can see it that way. And you can go, more detail. You got all these different things. And if let's say you're using one for work, if you're like, well, I don't need to see Saturday and Sunday, you can take that off. So again, if screen real estate is important, it gives you a lot of options that you can check or uncheck. All right, settings and the menu option. All right, so anytime you see the little cog kind of guy, that's typically settings. So we can go in here. And this has a lot of stuff, and surprisingly, I didn't see that they even offered this share in here, which kind of goes against what the normal Google way of doing things again is. So I don't know if they're going to be changing that, but right now it gives you a lot of different things you can choose. So as you can see, the time zone, and you can do, hey, do you want it to do, I think somewhere it talks about the, daylight savings time. That's what I was trying to come up with. And really just all kinds of stuff you can set up. So if you don't want to have to do it individually, you can say, hey, for the whole calendar, I want to do these things. So show weekends, and we had that option elsewhere too. When you want a day to start. I know a lot of folks that, and as a kid, I thought the first day of the week was Monday, because that's, when we went to school, and then later on it was like, wait, Sunday's the first day, really? I'm like, I did not know that. So you can tell it whatever you want makes sense for you. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but sometimes if you're in an email and it has a time and date, if you click on it, it'll sometimes be like, do you want to add an event? So if you have a Google Calendar set up, it can then sometimes be smart enough to be like, oh, I see a date. And then if you click on it, it'll just put all the details it can see into your calendar.
I think on the Apple phones, I'm not sure my Google, because I don't have one, it comes underlined.
Yes.
You can click on it, and then it'll ask you, do you want to make an appointment for this?
Yep.
Or if it's directions, if it's an address, it'll say, do you want directions to where you're going?
Yeah, I find that pretty handy too, right? Because
yeah, it is.
if all the details are already there, then nice. Just click on it and it adds it in. All right. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff they let you see there. So this is maybe new for folks. Subscribing to a calendar. So when I made the one for pickleball, there are people that have iPhones and there are people that have Android phones. So I found the way for the iPhone to be able to give them, because how many of you guys have iPhones? Oh, everybody. All right. So their format is called iCal, and then Android is different. But do you guys know Karen that sometimes works at the library? All right. She's an iPhone user, but she was a little challenged as far as the calendar early on, and I was like, let's see if I can find a way. So I found a way where she basically subscribed, but all she had to do is click on a link I sent her, and then it put her onto her regular calendar, and it added it onto it. So rather than having to go dig out the pickleball calendar, everything was in her one calendar for her. So it was nice and easy. So it's a kind of a nice feature to be able to have all your calendars, I think, in one, so you're not going back and forth like, oh shoot, there's the work one. And I'll show you how you can then turn off those things too. If you're like, hey, right now I only want to see my work stuff, or I only want to see holidays or something. But creating a new calendar, browsing calendars of interest, so they're out there. Just like Google Maps has the My Maps, where you can make your own map of an area and then put things on there. You can go look for calendars that might be interesting to you. Or if I made a URL and I said, hey, here's my calendar, then you could copy paste it, or more likely you're just going to click on the link and then it would give you the options to do stuff. And then this is where that thing about the CSV, which is the data file. So it's comma separated values. It's almost always people think of it as coming from Excel though. And I'll show you that document too, but it can be any spreadsheet that can keep things in tabular format. And instead of keeping them in actual boxes, it just puts commas between each piece of data. So if it's like first name, comma, last name, comma, date of birth, comma, that's what the actual data file looks like. So it's simplified. And then a document like Google Calendars can come along and say, oh, I'm going to expect things to be in this order, and as long as you follow the order I'm expecting, I'll put things into a calendar for you. So I'll show you what it looks like if you're interested too. So let me go back. If I had one of those files, then I could say, hey, I have a CSV file I want to bring in, and let me. In fact, let's take a look at that then, just so you guys know what I'm talking. Here we go. All right, so here are up in the green. Make this a little bigger, maybe if it'll let me. Can you guys see those? Okay. So I had, the first time I did this, I went and Googled and I said, what kind of CSV file or data file does Google Calendar want? And it said, I expect things to be in this order. So that's from Google. And I was like, all right, then I will make a little spreadsheet that has the subject, start date, start time, end date, end time, description, and location. And this is where, like, now all I have to do is edit this one data file, update the dates, and it'll all bring it into the calendar for me, which is, I think, really nice, rather than having to go through and do it 17 times for this month. This is, and I'll probably put this into the document for next time, as far as here are the data pieces it expects. And then you can put in down here whatever you want. But it's those things in green have to be in that order for Google Docs or Google Calendar to be happy.
Not for long though. When our dark overlord AI takes over, you'll just be able to put it in and it will separate it into categories that it thinks you want it into.
Well, we saw the form starting to get smart, right? Like, oh, I think this is a multiple choice question. Like, yeah.
They're going to be like, no.
That looks like an address. I could figure this out, yeah. And then for myself, the reason you see colors here, this is just to keep things easier for me. So, for instance, these are the Mondays are in green. And then, I don't know, have you guys ever used formulas in Excel or your spreadsheets? So, just because if I change April 1st, it'll automatically the week later, it'll add 7 to it, which will be April 8th. So I have it doing some things for me behind the scenes, because I'm like, well, let me just change one time, and then poof, like magic, it puts all the other stuff in there. Yeah. So yeah, these are the Mondays. I think these are the Wednesdays in the gold, Fridays, and then the Saturdays. So that was it keeps me honest as far as making sure I've got all the different dates. And then the rest of this, I just did this one time and then copied and pasted it all the way down, because that made it really easy. So if I'm on a document like this and I want it to be a CSV file, then I can say, where's the, oh, there we go, download. I was looking for save. I forgot. We're in the Google world. So since we're online, I can save it as an Excel file, or here's that one, comma separated values. And that's what a lot of places want as far, it makes it just a smaller data file than if it was a whole spreadsheet. Because the spreadsheet knows other stuff, just like Word has all the stuff about fonts and colors and all that. If you're just worried about the data, the CSV has just that. So it's a really common data type. But you can choose any of these things. So if you wanted to save it as a PDF, I know Joanne was saying she was getting something shared with her and she's trying to edit it, having a little bit of trouble. This might not be my backup for her, is like, well, let's look at it as a PDF then so you can at least see it and then go from there. But it gives you like a lot of good options as far as the common things that you might use. So I think the biggies would be Excel, a PDF, or a CSV. So once you do that, though, it saves it onto my local machine. And then if I was back in the calendar, I could go to my settings, go to the import export, and then find that file that I just made. And then once I click on it, I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. I don't want to freak people out. Be like, why are there two of everything? And then it'll take that information and throw it into the calendar for me, which really is what I did and how all of this stuff is in here now. So kind of nice, straightforward. You do it in and I don't know what do you guys think? Would you have things like this where you have a lot of recurring items that you'd want to have it organized where you can see it like this, or would you really just go to the calendar and click on a date and start adding the?
Way easier.
Which one?
That one.
This way? Just clicking on it and adding it in your thing. Okay.
I mean, they're both kind of easy, but that's easier to me. You just click on it.
Yep.
There's something, and then it gives you reminders.
That's true. Yeah. I like that. Like if when I Hulu was having a deal this last Christmas, and it was like, hey, 99 cents for a month for the first year, and then the price goes up. So like as soon as I did that, I'm like, okay, so let's go to the calendar and put in the price is going to go up, like, and then you can have the advance notice of like a day before, 2 days before, a week before, of alerting you to those kind of things. Because I'm like, that's a really good deal, but otherwise, that's I think how they succeed in you're forgetting, right? And then they're like, hey, great, you just paid us the full price. And I'm like, oh, darn it.
Most of the more reputable places will give you a reminder in your email like the week before. But you're right. Most places that don't want to give you the reminder say,
Yep.
hey, don't remind them. You got to remind yourself.
True. Yeah, I think if it's a one-off, or like even if there's only 2 or 3 in a given month, yeah, I would. That's what I do too. Is I click on my calendar, I add the details, and boom. Or if it's in an email, now we can just click on the link and it adds it to our calendar. It's only probably when you have something where you're like, hey, I've got 17 of the same thing in this month, then the other thing kind of makes sense. But you don't have to do that, obviously. All right, and then to get into the sharing. Remember, we had to go through the little dots next to that calendar. And if I was mentioning earlier, if you have, say, 3 different calendars, you can just click on them with this little thing here to either make it actively showing up on your calendar or not. So if you, for your personal calendar, and then you wanted to have a work one, if, say, work was down here, you could just be like, hey, I don't want to see that one right now, and all of the gold guys would disappear off your view. So you'd just be like, hey, I only want to look at my personal one right now.
Don't we use Google Calendars for ours? Because we all go through Roger, right? And he has it where it goes out to everybody.
A while back, you guys were using Outlook, but I don't know if that's still... Outlook.
Oh, Outlook.
Alpo? What? Isn't that the dog food?
We just have access to
I
it.
never
Yeah.
want to think about Outlook because mine is usually pretty good.
But nice. But it's that easy to turn them on and off, and it shows up in the My Calendars area. And then if you want to share, this is then where you have that option. So I made the pickleball one public just because I didn't want people to have to worry about I didn't join your group or I don't have a Gmail or I was just like, nope, I want anybody who wants to be able to see the calendar be able to see it. And then once you've done that, you can get a link to it. And that's what I think I shared I think I shared the Google Site one with you. And then from there, the calendar was built into it, I think. Okay. But you can get a link right here. And then it also has, I can't remember if it's down here. Yes. Here's where if you have, I don't know why they do this, but secret address in iCal format. So for people who have iPhones, you can get that link, and then like I was mentioning, Karen having an iPhone, and then being able to give her this link. All she had to do is click on it once, and then it brought it into her calendar too. So for her, it was just simple. Just everything's right there. So I don't know why they have two different things, but they do. And somewhere I believe there's also an Android version, but it might just be using one of these guys up here. But I've got an iPhone just like you guys. So once I saw that, I'm like, that's what I need. Okay, and then we, just like in the settings, the other way of looking at the other settings, it lets you navigate through all the things. So if you're quickly trying to move, you can use this as a little navigation. And away you go. All right, let's see where we are for our We talked about how to do a single event, which was I think the preferred Mark way, right? Just like, hey, I'm going to go add to the calendar and click on it, and now I've got my details. And if you don't add a time, then it'll default to being the whole day event. So if something's going to be most of the day or the whole day, then if you had an appointment and they're like, hey, we're going to set up your cable, but we're going to be here from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thanks. Somewhere in the day, you'll be out to see me. Yeah, you can do that. And then it has a separate thing for tasks. So if you like having that kind of where you have a check and have it be something that looks like it's completed, then you could treat it as that kind of thing instead. I haven't really used the tasks a lot because I usually just put it into the calendar as an event and then I can see it. But I do remember the early stages before smartphones. Do you guys remember the Palm Pilots? You remember those? So it had like a to-do list, and it was very nice because if you clicked on one of those, it like went away or it put a line through it, and you're like, like done. So I don't know if that's what Google's tasks do, but I wouldn't be surprised because that was kind of a nice feature on those.
If you do tasks, shares to other calendars.
Say one more time?
I don't think if you do a task in your calendar, other people can see it. If you share a calendar.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, gotcha. So
They can or they can't?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I like
Corey and
that.
I use this, I don't know a lot about it, but we have a shared calendar, but we have to do events for everything, otherwise the other person can't see.
Okay. Well, it's nice to know because then you could say, hey, this is, even if I was doing the pickleball thing, if I made a task, then it wouldn't freak everybody else out, right? They'd be like, I just saw the events. I'm like, okay, good. Nice. Well, I'm glad you said that. Now, that'll keep me, so if I do need to do pickleball stuff that isn't on the calendar, I'll add it as a task. So, cool. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So we looked at those. We did the SQL. Oh, I don't think we looked at the duplicating one yet. So let's take a look at that. And this was the one I thought was kind of handy if you had something where you were like, it's the same thing, but I don't have to do it again. It's hidden under the three dots over here. When you click on the event, then you can hit duplicate. And from there, for instance, you could change the date that it's happening. So like the beginners pickleball is the second and fourth Mondays. So I could just go and change the date, and then boom, I have my other one without having to type in all the details about like all this is automatically there again. So I'll discard that one. But I thought that was kind of nice because then once you've got all the wording just the way you want it, if you use the three dots and duplicate it, then you can change the time and the date, but all the other stuff can stay the same. All right. So there's the duplicating one.
When
Yeah.
you made the spreadsheet,
Yep.
and when you imported it into here, how did they show up then? Did you have to edit the names of them?
Nope. Oh, I guess it. Yeah, that's actually so. I actually have these guys all called JV Pickleball,
Okay.
and then if you notice, like this one,
Oh, okay.
it put the time first, but then all those details were from straight from the spreadsheet, which was super handy. I didn't put the beginners ones.
Added those in.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And I actually went back to the previous month because there are only 2 of those per month. So I went back to like last month and I was like, oh, I'll make a duplicate, and then I changed it to being April's.
Oh, nice.
So then it stands out differently. That way, because then I wanted to make it clear because there are some people in our group early on, they're like, there's another chance to play. I'm like, that's for the beginners, like leave them alone, let them play without smashing at them. So yeah, so I just that's why beginners is all caps because just wanted to make sure people weren't
Noobs, that's
yeah.
Blues Group, right?
loose group. Yep. Yeah, so I just figured it'd stand out that way. But yeah, good eye because that wasn't in the spreadsheet. But since there were only 2 of them, that was when I found the duplicate. I'm like, oh, that saves me because I was like, how did I word that before? Because I liked it, And then I'm like, duplicate. I'm like, yay! I have to remember. Subscribing to other calendars. Oh, right. So if you if somebody said, hey, I've made a calendar and I want to send you a link or something, then you can do that. If it's already in Google Calendar format, you can. But again, I think the iCal way was so easy. Like I did that for Karen. I just sent her the link. She clicked on it and boom, she was in. But I don't know if this would be maybe if there was like an Outlook calendar, you could do that as long as it was online or something. It
I
has.
would think so because Google is more in line with Windows than it is with Apple. They mesh a lot better. So
Right.
if there's an easy way to do it in Apple, there's an easy way to do it in Windows as well.
Right.
Or
Well,
Google.
yeah, and Microsoft Outlook has been around a long time, and a lot of organizations they've been using it for years. So
Right,
if it's not broken, why switch?
exactly.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, that's so all of this stuff where you're either sharing or subscribing is down in that My Calendar section, and then you either add a new calendar or if you're trying to share your calendar, that's the way to get in there to do it. Importing multiple calendar details. Oh, okay, yeah, that was the one we already looked at with the spreadsheet. So again, since all of this was the same, I just had to copy and paste it one time. And then really for the details on each Monday or each day of the week that was happening, I did the same thing where, I copied and pasted it down so I didn't have to redo it all. Yeah, that's pretty much it for calendar. Anything that you were not sure about or you wanted to dig into some more?
So for making the spreadsheet,
Uh-huh.
if you were to do that from scratch,
Yep.
it's Google spreadsheet is what it's called?
Yep.
Over on the right?
You got it. Yeah, so if I'll go back here and I'll say new Google Sheet,
Okay.
and then only because I went and looked on their site, I'll just copy this.
So from there, you can get to the calendar view by looking at under view, right?
Um,
If you go under view, you can get it to that calendar the way I like it.
No, this is a
No.
spreadsheet that he's importing into the calendar.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, I've got them open on separate tabs. I've got the calendar.
No, what I'm saying is you don't have that open right now. How would you open that calendar from that spreadsheet?
I would go to my drive where I can see all of my stuff,
Okay,
and then calendar is one of the items.
and calendar's one, and so from that spreadsheet, it would take that spreadsheet and put it into calendar form.
No,
No,
he has to import that data into. But
so
I
that
wanna
won't
know
just
how
go
you
over
start,
to,
how you make
you
this
can't just
spreadsheet.
add all that and then have it go to a calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did that.
that's what he did.
Yeah, how did you do that?
Okay, so you make the data file first,
Right.
and then
This is what you have right now. You don't
Yep.
have a calendar that says this. How do you do that?
gotcha. Then I have to make a data file.
Okay,
So that was where I went to the CSV.
the CSV
Yep,
file.
because that's what Google said it wanted.
Right, comma, space, value.
Yep. So once I have that CSV file, then from the calendar, I can go back and
And open a CSV file.
import it. Actually, no, it was here, wasn't it? Settings.
There you go.
Well, no, that's the export. Yeah, see, they tricked me because
Yeah, that's,
they've got it two different places. So settings, and then I can import and export from here.
okay.
And so that CSV file, once I've made the CSV file, then I can click on it.
Then you can click on it and
And
it will drop it into the calendar form.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay.
And then, so what I was just going to share or show was this is the stuff it's expecting to have in this order until the AI takes over. So yeah, these are the
Won't
things
be
it
long.
wants.
It's getting smarter every day.
Although I did see Good Morning America was showing how they both TurboTax and what's the H&R one for taxes, tax audit or
Rocket.
something, but they.
Something rocket tech.
Yeah, well, whatever it was, they both have AI assistants, and so they had it. They gave it like 10 things, and they were like, well. Then they brought in like tax experts, and they're like, well, this one's just wrong. It gave the wrong information. This one's kind of misleading or completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah,
They're gonna have you cheat the government.
Yeah.
And you're gonna go to jail because of AI.
and the computer's like, haha, I got another one.
I live.
Okay, so yeah, once you have all the details in there like this, it make a separate file with the download, and then once it's in the format Google likes, you just import it, and then boom,
You import it and
all
it
those,
drops it right into a calendar.
yeah, which I like, yeah. Again, if you've got something that's going to be repeating like that, it's pretty handy.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I think that was. Oh, and then I didn't know if you guys wanted to talk about. Well, it said April because that was. It's now April. I guess this will be what, May. We haven't looked at Google Maps, but I didn't know if there was something else that was interesting for
I
you
like
guys.
to do math.